Maggie drove the familiar winding road back to her childhood home. It was late, the moon barely visible behind thick clouds, and the air carried a strange, oppressive stillness. She'd taken this route 100 times, but tonight something felt different. The GPS chimed, breaking the silence. "Turn left at the fork." Maggie frowned. There was no left turn at this fork, or at least there hadn't been before. Curious, she slowed down, her headlights illuminating a narrow dirt path cutting through the woods. Against her better judgment, she turned. The road was rough, flanked by trees whose gnarled branches seemed to reach for her car. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cool autumn air. Maggie checked her GPS again. It had gone dark. Suddenly, her car hit something, a jarring thud. Heart pounding, she stopped and stepped out to investigate. She expected to see a fallen branch or an animal. Instead, she found a tattered suitcase lying in the middle of the road. The suitcase was old, its leather peeling and the latches rusted shut. Her hands trembled as she unlatched it. Inside, she found a single item, a photograph. It was a picture of her family, her parents, her brother, and herself as a child, standing in front of their house. But something was wrong. In the background, through the living room window, a shadowy figure loomed, its face obscured. Maggie didn't remember anyone being there when the picture was taken. The wind howled, carrying with it a faint whisper, "Come back to us." Shaken, Maggie climbed back into her car, gripping the wheel tightly. She reversed, determined to leave this road and find her way back to the main highway. But as she drove, the path seemed endless, stretching far beyond what should have been possible. The trees grew denser, their branches dangling overhead to block out the sky. Her headlights flickered, casting fleeting shadows that danced unnaturally. She glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. A figure was sitting in the back seat. It wore tattered clothing, its face pale and expressionless. Maggie whipped around, but the back seat was empty. Heart hammering, she turned back to the road and slammed on the brakes. Standing in front of her car was her brother. "Danny?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her brother had died 10 years ago. He smiled at her, but his eyes were hollow, lifeless. Slowly, he raised his hand, pointing to a clearing just ahead. Maggie's headlights illuminated a dilapidated house, a perfect replica of her childhood home. "No," she muttered, shaking her head. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. The figure in her rearview mirror appeared again, this time leaning closer, whispering in her ear, "Go inside." Unable to fight the pull, Maggie stepped out of the car. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of decay. The house loomed before her, its windows dark and lifeless. The front door creaked open as she approached, revealing a dimly lit hallway. Familiar furniture sat covered in dust and cobwebs, and the faint sound of laughter echoed from the kitchen. "Mom? Dad?" Maggie called out, her voice breaking. She followed the sound to the dining room. Her family was seated around the table, just as they had been so many years ago. But their movements were jerky, unnatural, and their eyes were black voids. "Maggie," her mother said, her voice warped and echoing. "We've been waiting for you." Her father extended a hand, beckoning her to join them. "It's time to come home." "No!" Maggie screamed, backing away. She turned to run, but found the hallway had disappeared, replaced by endless darkness. The whispers returned, louder now, surrounding her. "Stay with us. You belong here." Maggie's vision blurred as she stumbled, her legs growing heavy. She felt cold hands gripping her arms, pulling her back toward the table. In a final act of desperation, she reached for the photograph she'd found in the suitcase. It was warm to the touch, and the shadowy figure in the background seemed to move, stepping closer to her family. With a flash of light, the house began to crumble around her, the shadows retreating. Maggie collapsed, gasping for air. When she opened her eyes, she was back on the main road, her car idling beside her. The photograph lay on the passenger seat, but the shadowy figure was gone. Maggie never spoke of that night again. But every so often, she would wake to the sound of whispers and find the photograph on her nightstand, the shadow creeping closer to the foreground,